It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, this is Sunday morning Belgast as opposed to Saturday evening Belgast when we normally record AggroChat podcast. Largely starting off with a disclaimer. Something happened during the last 15 minutes of the show, and as a result, my sentences got cut off abruptly, and I am not exactly sure what happened. And unfortunately, since we're not a scripted show, I'm not 100% sure what I was saying half the time. So, yeah, I can't exactly re-record them. Just wanted to give you a heads up. It is not your audio equipment, but instead something that happened on my end, and hopefully it's not going to happen again. But anyway, I will now return you to the normal flow of time for the actual show. Thank you. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 235. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hello.
So I feel like this is probably like time that I should say that I believe for the foreseeable future that Grace is on hiatus.
Yes.
Grace is doing some stuff, and the stuff, gets in the way of gaming for the moment. So, yeah, she will join us again at some point in the future, once things are less so stuffy.
She's busy summoning Dread Cthulhu.
It's true. I mean, it'll be fine. I will look forward to my underwater overlords. Anyway, so we have a show of bump topics that were mostly bumped from last week. And quite honestly,
bumped from quite a lot longer ago than last week.
It's true.
Yep.
Quite honestly, I like this whole bumping thing because it means that we usually have a couple topics in the queue. Ash, I don't even know what this topic is. I assume this is yours, right?
Originally it was, yes.
Okay, and then it changed.
No, it's just I was observing that the state of Kickstarter now is somewhat different than the state of Kickstarter even a few years ago, and mostly checking up on the status of what things are even out there now. It's been very good for board games. I got the second season of Dice Throne came through last year.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to note that especially.
Have you actually received your second season of Dice Throne?
Yes.
I have not. I need to look into that. And
you should contact them
and see if I forgot to fill out a survey, because I'm really bad about filling out Kickstarter surveys.
Yeah, I got it in early December.
Okay.
But I've been less good about it for video games. I think I backed a single video game last year, and it was a Boyfriend Dungeon.
Which is already out, I think.
It's not out.
Oh, okay.
It's not going to be out until late this year, if it's on time.
So it'll be out sometime next year.
Most
or perhaps
likely.
2021.
Yeah, Kitfox isn't that slow.
Hmm.
But also, I've been amused by, and there's really no other term for this, the status of Unsung Story, which was one of the Kickstarters from the Kickstarter boom in 2014. It threw around the name Matsuno a whole lot because they wanted to make a game like Final Fantasy Tactics. The creators cut and ran, and some mobile game company picked up the project and has been keeping it updated. It is truly the strangest thing I have ever seen.
This is the one with the triangular tiles, and yeah.
Yep, that one.
That one is so very strange to me.
So the creators have cut and run, and who's maintaining the project now?
A company called Little Orbit. They have done nothing of note other than some little mobile games.
Did they buy the people who cut and runs work off of them?
Yep, sure did. What little work had been done.
I'm always curious, did they run out of money, or did they actually just scam and take a whole bunch of money? And what's the way out of that? Why would you even buy that project? Does this...
That I don't know. Like I said, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Are they going to supposedly get the money from Kickstarter as well?
Nope. No, it makes no sense.
Right. Yes, there was a design progress update in December of 2016, and then in August of 2017, things happened.
This seems nonsense.
And I'm not sure if they did buy... I mean, then they said that they were starting completely over. So Yeah, when Ash says what little work there was, it kind of sounds like that was none.
But but why would you sign up for that? Like, what possible reason would you have for saying, you know what I want to do? I want to pick up this broken project and we're going to take it home.
I guess if you are a mobile game company that has done nothing of note, this might be something of note if you can manage to cross the finish line with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an opportunity to make a game and get it in front of a whole bunch of people.
Whew. I mean, I guess, but man, that's...
They did it for the exposure.
Yeah.
In other late project news, Bloodstain has not come out, but will probably come out at some point this year, as they seem to be cutting things that are difficult to deliver or not worth delivering. We don't really need to go over that one again.
Yeah, I was looking down through my list, and there's a lot of stuff that I backed that has not come out yet, software-wise. I mean, some of it I've received some version of it, but the real one hasn't come out. Mm-hmm. So, like, I backed Ashes of Creation, because, like, I knew I would play it at some point, and I figured it was just a cheap copy. I did get Mages of Mystralia. That's a cool game. I backed Insomnia, which is like a Fallout-inspired game, and their last update was a really long time ago. Yeah. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that one. Deadwood, The Forgotten Curse. Yeah, I've not heard much about that one. Crowfall is in alpha hell.
Oh, man.
But that's a game that exists and is in development, and therefore is better than some games on my list.
It's true.
I'll be honest, I mostly don't go in for the Kickstarter game thing, mostly because it feels like an even worse version of pre-ordering.
Yeah.
So, like, when it comes to video games, I don't know. I've had the opinion since the start of Kickstarter that Kickstarter video games were a bad idea. There are some exceptions that I have kicked into either because for whatever reason I've felt like maybe there's a different option, but like for the most part, not super successful. I will back a Kickstarter video game if I'm like, I would like to support the creators. And if a game happens as a result of me doing that, great.
There are definitely a few from the early days that I feel like Kickstarter was very important for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Project Eternity is a really big one.
Yep.
Pillars of Eternity came out and it was a pretty good game.
Yeah. I mean, the Shadowrun games.
Shadowrun Returns.
Shadowrun is the even larger one, yeah.
Yeah, like, and I feel great about backing those. Battletech is another one that I feel really good about backing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's popular to hate on, but like, I've had fun playing Star Citizen. I honestly feel like at this point, Star Citizen has surpassed Elite Dangerous in terms of interesting things it's doing. And Elite Dangerous is a supposedly finished game that you can buy right now. I mean, cue angry ED fans, but and then Battleship Brigade I was happy about, and Boyfriend Dungeon, because again, I don't actually care that much if I get a game out of those, but I do. I am excited about what's this called? I am excited about supporting it.
Part of the other reason this topic came up was because Obsidian, after the success of their first Kickstarter, started another Kickstarter-like site called Fig.
Yep, that's where Psychonauts 2 ended up.
It's also where their sequel ended up. But Microsoft then bought them. Who owns Fig now?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Like, I know it has a board, and there's people from the various, companies that kickstarted major games on the board.
So, I'm realizing that I've just not logged into BackerKit in eons.
Whoops.
And I had a bunch of surveys, because I forgot that was a thing that I needed to do, because reasons.
Nope.
You are that person, aren't you, Bill?
I am that person, yeah. Like, so, I guess this is the biggest tale of Kickstarter for me is, like, how jaded I've become about it, because, like, I've backed a lot of things over the years, and when it first came on the scene, I backed a lot of stuff, and as it has continued on, I have passed up most of them, the ones that might interest me, thinking that, oh well, it will eventually come out or it won't. I feel like the role of Kickstarter is maybe questionable at this point, because it seems like, at least when software is concerned, that the games that are worth backing on Kickstarter are the games that were going to come out anyway.
Yeah.
That might be true now. I don't think that was initially true.
No, it wasn't initially
No, it wasn't
true.
initially. But now, yeah.
And I think it's mostly because the average person has no clue how difficult it is to make a video game. And they think they do, but they really don't have a clue. So it's a situation of they enter into this with the best of intents, but things just take longer than they expected.
Well, honestly, that type of stuff is why I don't mind, like, necessarily having veterans attached to a project. That at least says somebody on this project might have a clue here.
Well, and I also think, like, this is a reason why board game Kickstarters have generally been a safe bet, because it is easier to get a board game made. It has less moving parts.
This is true up until the board game tries to promise massive amounts of minis.
I mean, Division.
Well, and there was also Ogre, which ended up being, I think, like a 75-pound game.
Oh, Steve Jackson.
And, like, had to have, I think, an extra box to include all the stretch goals in it.
Yeah. And I've started being a lot more cautious about watching what that they're trying to promise as stretch goals to begin with. Because it's like, on the one hand, it's cool as a start point to be like, oh man, there's going to be so much cool stuff, but like that just means it's more unlikely that you get it.
Right. Each one of those is going to push back the project. And I think that's a thing that maybe the first folks that did this thing didn't quite realize.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But now everyone should understand that, every stretch goal is going to set it back by a month or two.
More money does not let you develop faster.
No.
I'll be honest,
especially because
I also never quite understood stretch goals in the first place, because doesn't that also overall, like, reduce your margins? Like, it felt to me like stretch goals would totally obliterate margins at some point, because you're basically saying, well, if more people buy it, everyone is going to get more bonus features. Like, as more people are buying them, those bonus features are that much more expensive to build, especially for board games.
I think that the idea is, once you hit a certain point, you start to hit economies of scale, is the idea there, but realistically, that doesn't always work. Like, economies of scale do sort of work that way, but that's a big sorta.
Right. And to some extent, that's also true in the software world. There's a lot of solutions that would work fine for, like, 20,000 people, but would not work fine for, like, 1 million people.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it's true that even if you're talking about physical products, saying, oh, hey, we can get, because we suddenly, like Reaper Bones is a really good example, where
Didn't they lose a lot of money on that?
They lost a bunch of money on the first one, but they did do, like, 3 more. But, like, they were able to add a bunch more minis, because what they were doing wasn't designing minis. They were just making plastic molds for what they already had. So it's like, okay, we're going this big, we can go slightly bigger and get this other thing.
Well, and what made sense there is largely once they figured out how to make the first set of molds, they were just repeating a process. I mean, if they were making molds off of existing sculpts, then they're basically just focusing on fine-tuning the process of making molds.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating how many minis-heavy board games manage to be successful. Like, things that I tend to consider decently reliable Kickstarters are board games and miniatures. I
mean, I think the takeaway there is, like, once you've built the molds, plastic minis really are way cheaper to produce.
Yeah, if you've made enough money to turn all of these things into minis, it's sort of a negligible cost after that to print some for everybody who kicked in.
Random thing that popped into my head while we're talking slantwise about minis. I wonder what the drop of the pound is going to do to Games Workshop miniatures. Are they suddenly
Forge
going
World
to become?
already got way more expensive middle of last year when they added currency conversion.
Yeah, it's not great, but yes, they figured out currency conversion.
I like the idea of Kickstarter. It just hasn't ended up being as reliable as I had hoped.
Maybe if you fill out your surveys.
Look, I mean, okay, so there are 4 products waiting for me to fill out a survey. I just mean, like, there is a large number of things on my list that are still in development hell. Granted, they're all software.
I got swept up by the craze in basically 2014, 2013.
Yeah.
I managed to not get too caught up in software. There's other stuff I got caught up with, but yeah, a healthy dose of skepticism re-software has been good for me.
Probably the Kickstarter item that I use the most is my fidget cube. Because it's sitting on my desk at work, and I fiddle with it all the friggin' time.
I feel like that's a different lesson, though. Like, maybe don't refuse your first delivery.
Yeah. Although, the actual fidget cubes are now in, like, Target and Walmart and stuff like that, so, I mean, they are in theory doing okay.
Are they? I wasn't sure if that was the knockoff or not.
No, that's the actual fidget cube. It's got the sticker on the side that mine also has.
Nice.
Now, the first ones that were sold on Amazon were the knockoffs.
The knockoffs are significantly more common on Amazon.
Well, I mean, they were the real ones for a while, but they got shipped back. So I don't have a great segue here, but clearly the Kickstarter topic is largely wound down. I have been playing a lot of Far Cry 5, and I have things to say about it, but I have a thing to say about Ubisoft real quick, because this kind of creeped me out a little bit. So, like, Saturday through Wednesday, I pretty much played Far Cry 5 every single night. And then Thursday, I didn't. And then Friday, in my inbox, I got a message saying that Hope County still needs saving. And you're only 80% the way through the game. And, like, it had, like, some statistics about the number of people that I've killed, the number of headshots I've made. So apparently they don't want me to take a night off?
I guess not.
Yeah,
that is a little creepy.
That is weird. Okay, so Far Cry 5 is a game set in rural United States. And the premise is that a religious cult has basically taken over large swaths of Hope County, Montana. And the game is going to have callbacks to every cult type situation that's happened in America. So, like, there's a touch of Ruby Ridge, there's a touch of the Branch Davidians, there's a touch of it all. And it looked interesting to me, so I wanted to play it because there's a direct sequel, and this is the first time in a Far Cry game there's ever been an actual direct sequel. So
it's interesting to me knowing what I know about the way that game ends.
Yeah, but Far Cry New Dawn, which is coming out next month, is a direct sequel to the events that happen in Far Cry 5. So effectively, there's the Seed family. There's Joseph, which is the father, aka the prophet, and then there's Faith, Faith is a weird character that sets it up, like, it makes it seem like she's going to be a temptress, but that's not really what happens. There's John Seed, that is kind of, I don't even know how to describe him. And then there's Jacob Seed, which is like this crazy, over-the-top hunter that wants to cull the weak. And there are parts of the game that I really like. There is the traditional Far Cry part that is running around and blowing shit up that I find terribly enjoyable. Like, it is entertaining to be running through the forest and randomly get attacked by wildlife. It is entertaining to me that I can run around with a bear named Cheeseburger.
What?
Who's my friend. Yes, you can get 3 animal companions. Peaches the cougar, Boomer the dog, which is like the first companion that you come across, and Cheeseburger the bear. Cheeseburger the bear is amazing and clearly the correct choice.
Clearly.
So, like, all of that is super fun. Like, it's hilarious. It's got some biting commentary about the religious right. It's got lots of entertaining side quests. The whole cult thing is creepy as hell. And the problem that I have with the game is that the game gets in the way of what I want to do. And what I mean by that is, as you're trying to liberate Hope County, there's like a resistance bar that moves at the top of the map. And it kind of reminds me of... I'm trying to think if there was another game that was like this, where you were like doing guerrilla warfare on Mars.
Red Faction?
Red Faction Guerrilla, yes. So that had a kind of a similar vibe to it, to where you've got like a section and you're basically like destroying the influence of the company in that region. And similar things happening here. You're basically destroying the influence of the cult in that area and liberating people and blowing up tankers, and there are like vans where the cult has abducted people, and you can like, you know, crash into the van and make it stop, or shoot out the driver, or multiple ways to stop it. But like, you have to be super careful not to hit the people in the back, and if you've done it successfully, you can like open the back and liberate whoever was being abducted in that van. So like all of that is fine, but during 3 times on each subzone, you will get abducted yourself by whoever the big baddie of that area is. And you're basically forced to play through a cutscene that you have very little authority over. So it's like the game is really good until one of those happens. And then you're just kind of forced to sit through it until you get on the other side of it, and then you can do stuff again. And then you know there's going to be another cutscene and another semi-forced battle at the end to move on to the next area. So
is this like a Half-Life style, you can move around, but it's really just a cutscene thing?
Yes, it is very much that. So like, yeah, you can move off the path, but like, it's going to subtly put you back on the path. So yeah, like that's the only part of this game that I don't like. So I am hoping with New Dawn they don't do this thing, because it's really not fun. But the rest of the world is really cool. Like, it has a pretty good flight system that is simple enough for me to feel like it's enjoyable without having to fiddle too much and be too simmy. The only negative is one of the boss fights that you have to deal with is a dogfight in the air, and the controls are not good enough to really dogfight in the air. So the correct answer to that is to basically hire one of the NPCs that can also fly and have them take out the NPC while you're flying around and trying to avoid get hit. All in all, like, it's an enjoyable game, but I think it's kind of flawed, mostly in the way that it deviates from previous Far Cry games. Though I guess if I'm thinking back, like, a lot of other Far Cry games have had this sequence where you're forced to deal with the NPC. Yeah. So definitely remember that in 3 and 4, to where like, oh, now I'm going to stop doing the fun things and have to deal with this little story segue. But
yeah, but you don't want that to be a recurring frustration.
Yeah.
Like, that can be cool once.
I think part of what makes this worse is that there's a certain sameness to it. Like, you can clock it to where I've made it to 1/3 of the bar full. I'm going to get abducted soon. I've made it to 2/3 of the bar full. I'm going to get abducted soon. I've filled the bar. Okay, I guess I'll fight a boss now. Whereas it didn't feel quite like that in the previous games. It felt like I was on a story mission, and the story mission didn't really play out in a predictable way. So yeah, like I've talked to a bunch of people this week about Far Cry 5, and all of the ones who played it largely had the exact same complaint. So hopefully that will be fixed when New Dawn comes out, because it's an interesting setting. It's interesting for reasons why probably that wouldn't make sense to anyone else, because like, I grew up in a very rural setting, so like there are a lot of characters in this game that I remember people just like them. So like, it has a very weird going home kind of feel to it, which would not be there for everyone. But anyway, I think it's worth playing, but
it sounds interesting. I kind of am curious how well it treats the subject material, Because like what I was thinking was that's kind of a like cults are a kind of sensitive topic.
It treats it in a way that like, so I don't know, like it's kind of difficult because like most of the cultists are just cannon fodder. Like there are people that you're going to kill a lot of them because some of them are just to the point where you can't skip them. But each one of these lieutenants basically has a different kind of brainwashing and indoctrination that they do. You know, like one of them, you know, tries to get you to confess your sins, and the only way, you know, you can have freedom is to confess your sins and like wear your sins proudly before you can exorcise them from you. Another one like functionally drugs their followers and like puts them in a state of bliss, but at the same time they're easily controllable when they're in a state of bliss.
Right, the magic mind control math.
Yeah, the magic mind control math. And Jacob's the most interesting, and I've not seen my way all the way through that, but it's the only way to survive as a society is to cull the weak. The weak serve as fuel for the strong sort of mentality. And it's like, it's weird how vastly different these three lieutenants are, all while being in functionally the same cult. But a lot of what you're dealing with is so there's not a lot of time spent on the cultists themselves, but there's a lot of time spent on the people that are now affected by the actions of the cultists. Because basically, the first few minutes of the game have you as a rookie sheriff's deputy going to arrest the leader of the Project Eden's Gate, and all the townsfolk called him Peggies, or PEG, Project Eden's Gate. And you go into this really bad situation, and apparently the leader had prophesied that they would come for him, and that would begin the end of an event that he calls the Collapse. And when you go to arrest him, things go south, and you barely make it out, and everyone else gets captured. And at that point, like, all of these cultists that were on a compound spread out through the county and take over everything. So you're dealing with a lot of ramifications of like damaged people that were harmed by the actions of these cultists. So some people you just like try and help out enough so that they can leave the area successfully. Other people you help reclaim things that were lost. The side stories are like all really interesting. And since I'm somebody who definitely likes side quests more than main quests, it appeals to me.
I mean, yeah, it definitely seems like the side quests sound cool, but like it sounds like every time the main story interjects, you're not happy.
No, the main story is like, it's not that I mind the things that are necessarily happening, I just don't like the way in which it's being forced upon me.
It's that the main story comes up and clubs you in the head and forces you to play it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the whole abduction mechanic. That's the part that I really take issue with, because like when it happens, you're stuck doing this. There's no way to not do this thing. Anyway,
yeah, hijacks your play.
Yep. Anyway, we've spent a while on Far Cry 5 at this point. Kodra, you have been playing Destiny 2.
Yeah, I got Destiny Forsaken, and I had a level 24 hunter. And I was like, well, what can I do on this level 24 hunter because I can't do Forsaken yet, because I have to be level 30, right?
Right.
So I started going through, what's it called? I hadn't completed the Infinite Forest, so I completed all of those missions, which was fun. The Curse of Osiris content was cool. And then I had Warmind unlocked, so I started on that. And then it was like, oh, by the way, every single time you do a Warmind quest, the next one's going to be 10 light levels harder. You know what you don't get from doing a Warmind quest?
10 light levels.
Sure don't.
This is what stopped me. This is what I tried to jump back, and then this is what stopped me.
So, yeah, like, that's not a great feeling. They give you the ability, when you buy this game, to just take a character up to level 30. But you can't do Warmind or Curse of Osiris if you do that, or the main story. And I was like, I want to do these things, so I did. And I had to go and grind a couple of events to get blue drops until I got my way back up. But that, like, I'm willing to put in the work for it. And I don't know, I was happy to beat Warmind, and then I got into Forsaken. I have some story discussion about Forsaken. First off, one of the things that is really frustrating about this game is it is such high fidelity that all of the MMO components feel out of place. Like, this feels like a AAA game that can tell a cool, interesting story, but it is so very much an MMO that, like, things just don't make sense. And I'll talk about the first quest you do, which is you are going to quell a prison riot. Which,
in a place that is not necessarily correctly named as a prison?
But that's not clear. So I'm going to push back. That is not made clear.
Yeah, I think you were gone the week that I basically went down this path, or at least I know I did on the blog. I thought I did it on the podcast, where so this is another perspective of this before you get into your experiences about it real quick, is I thought nothing of it when I did it, because I'm a Destiny 1 player. Like, I played all this content, and this is like post-launch content. This is pretty deep in to be able to see this. So, like, I didn't think anything about it. Like, oh, whoa, this is really cool. Like, this is all stuff that I'm a big fan of. And it wasn't until I played through it on the Hunter that I realized, oh, crap. Nothing that is happening here would make a damn bit of sense to anybody who has not played the bowels of Destiny 1. Like, none of this shit is mentioned anywhere in Destiny 2. Yet, going into it, it's just kind of hand-waved that this stuff's happening, and none of it's explained, and that's kind of bad. So, there, setting Kodra up, like, Kodra is a prime example of this stuff makes no sense, because nobody told me about it.
So you go into a prison where a whole bunch of people there's a massive prison break. Everyone's loose, everyone's rioting, and that is represented in game by all of the people that you normally fight in all of their armor with all of their specific types of weaponry wandering around this prison and fighting you. And I just was like, well, I guess they don't care about, like, trying to tell that nuanced of a story, but it feels like even a game like WoW would have introduced a new enemy type for, like, fallen prisoners, as opposed to just taking all of the fallen that you fight out in the normal world and being like, these fallen were the prisoners. They were left with their guns and all of their armor and all of their special equipment.
Because clearly that just makes total sense.
And I get it. It's the challenge. This game is super stingy about introducing new enemy types, because introducing new enemy types is hard and needs to be balanced, because they're going to use that enemy type over and over and over and over again. Because, like, they want the way enemy types interact with each other is what makes this game fun. And this game is very much fun. I love wandering around. I love shooting stuff in it. The story is bonkers. Like,
it is.
Like, it doesn't make sense. It barely makes sense when you read it textually and, like, forgive it some stuff. But when you're, like, actually examining it, it's like, this doesn't even make any sort of sense. Like, they have such a limited toolkit to tell stories in this world, and that's a shame.
It's a big problem. Like the thing that you were saying is the thing that I just realized when I was playing through on a second character recently. And part of the problem is like, okay, so that mission, you are running a mission with Cade that you know, and Petrovenge, someone you don't know at all.
Nope.
Yet, if you play Destiny 1, there are so many little callbacks to things that she did and she said. Like, the game makes a point out of, like, one of the scenes just after she's killed a bunch of people. She says, "I love field work." And, like, that doesn't make a damn bit of sense. But that was one of the handful of things that she said all the time when you went to the reef and you interacted with her. So again, that's a callback that makes no sense if you weren't a Destiny 1 player.
Wait, the reef?
The reef.
Was she like the queen?
She was the queen's advisor that you actually interacted with.
The queen is super dead. That part I did pick up.
Yeah,
the queen's emissary.
So, but again, like, you're seeing Uldren Sov, someone that you don't have a damn clue who he is unless you played Destiny 1. There's a scene where I think Cade says, "How's your sister?" Again,
let's be clear.
That doesn't mean a damn bit of sense if you didn't play Destiny 1.
Destiny 1 storytelling was even worse, so even if you did play Destiny 1.
Well, and you didn't get to mess around with the reef. I mean, so yes, you spend a few seconds on the reef in the Destiny 1 main story. However, like, you don't actually interact with the reef until whatever the Wolves expansion
House
is.
of Wolves.
House of Wolves, yeah. Like, that's when it introduces the cast of characters on the reef. So, yeah, like, so even if you just play Destiny 1 through the main story, if you didn't also then play through all of the DLC content, like, there are things that just wouldn't make any sense. Like, Prison of Elders doesn't make sense.
I get the really strong feeling with Destiny that they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have absolute perfect control of every enemy type and make sure that everything is sacrificed in the service of gameplay, and then also get credit for being brilliant storytellers and level designers and, you know, environment and setting creators. And, like, you don't get to have that. Not without doing more work than they're doing.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, this game is really good when it's having you do big set piece battles against, like, an organized army. But, like, that's not the story that is happening when you are, you know, dealing with a prison break. They're supposed to be, like, chaotic and whatnot. But it didn't feel anything different than I am fighting a fully organized army who happens to also be just a bunch of rioting, looting prisoners. And so there's a lot of, like, this feels way out of place.
This is a prison because we made some assets that look like prison cells.
Yes.
Not, this is a prison because we thought about what a fight in a prison would look like.
Yes.
And we very clearly thought, we don't actually care what a fight in the prison would look like because it wouldn't be as good as, it wouldn't be playing to our strengths.
It wouldn't be as fun as a big set piece battle.
Yeah.
Well, and so part of the thing is, like, no time is spent explaining what the Prison of Elders was. That there were actual prisoners down on the lowest level, and they were in, like, little isolation cryopods. However, general people that they captured ended up being cannon fodder for a, like, training exercise called the Challenge of Elders, to where you and your squad of guardians would go in, and Varix, which was a friendly fallen, would pit you against a bunch of different waves of enemies. So I assume the things that are running around are basically those people got free from wherever they were being held before they got transmatted into the arena.
That also makes very little sense.
So it was more of a gladiatorial area than anything else.
It's an incredibly convoluted way to get to a set piece battle where they don't have to create new assets.
Yeah.
They're starting from, we don't want to create new assets or new enemy types, so we're not gonna, and we're going to come up with as much convoluted narrative as possible to justify this shortcut we're taking.
Well,
or this sacrifice we're making in favor of a gameplay situation.
Yeah, so it plays out weird, but, like, for the people like me that ran Challenge of Elders as a weekly thing, like, there's a lot of cool payoff in running through this prison, because we always wondered what the rest of the complex looked like.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was a thing that we did all the time, and it was, like, one of the loot grinds. But, like I said just a little bit ago, this doesn't work unless you played all these things, and you can't take for granted that Destiny 2 players, especially PC Destiny 2 players, ever had any exposure to anything from Destiny 1. When you don't take any time to explain any of it.
But they don't have time to explain why they don't have time to explain.
It's true. They don't have time to explain why they don't have time to explain.
What? Yes, that is why Destiny 1 is such a terrible story. The other thing about this game is it's about the death of Cade 6. It's not really spoilers. They told everyone that this is the story of Cade 6 dying.
Yeah, they were pretty upfront about that. Like, to the point that everybody was theorizing that it wasn't actually going to be that.
But
I mean, side note, Nathan Fillion is no longer voicing Cade 6 in Forsaken.
it's true.
Like,
So-
I didn't necessarily pick up on that until the second playthrough, but
Yeah, he says it was because they never asked him.
It's Nolan North doing his best Cade 6 impression. Or his best Nathan Fillion impression.
His best Captain Malik impression.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what this actually meant is that the character I enjoyed hanging out with, the characters who banter I enjoyed, is now dead, and there is no character left in this game whose banter I enjoy.
Ooh.
I mean,
Correct.
Zavala is soulless and joyless.
So Zavala, I actually hate Zavala. Like, this expansion made me really dislike Zavala. I, don't want to do anything for him. Like, this expansion makes me like Akora Ray better, but she's not, she's very solemn and serious, and, her story is quite sad, and she's good at selling, that she is quite sad.
Yeah,
But-
the whole interaction with Anna Bray makes me like Zavala even less.
The interaction with Anna,
The Warmind stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Warmind stuff.
Yeah.
the Warmind stuff, the whole way he handles for the story of Forsaken, the way he treats Akora Ray in Forsaken. Boy, Zavala's character is just awful.
He's the worst.
Which is a real pity when you don't have that many characters to begin with.
And
Yep.
yeah, this game can't afford to have bad characters because it doesn't have many characters you're interacting with. And especially now, it's all you're interacting with is Zavala for the most part.
And because this isn't because you are an aggressively silent protagonist.
Oh
You
no,
don't-
you speak now.
Yeah, you are no longer a silent protagonist.
Oh joy.
It's
Yeah.
it-
It's kind
you
of
have,
abrupt when it happens.
lines. It's very well. I mean, it's at Cade's funeral.
But you don't get to say, Zavala, you suck.
No, you don't.
And in
Even,
fact, you probably
that's-
just keep on doing whatever Zavala tells you.
No,
it's true.
no, you actually don't.
Well, in the story, you explicitly go against Zavala's wishes, and then at the end of the story, when you are successful, he dresses you down and tells you that you should have done what he wanted to do in the first place anyways, and you've just put everyone at so much more danger because of your reckless actions. And I'm like, you need to leave this room right now, Zavala. But of course, at this point, you're back to being a silent protagonist.
Okay, so the thing that's bothering me more and more with Destiny is okay, we are clearly the best Guardian. We are clearly the only one who can ever seem to get shit done. Yet they've not given us any reason for why we are apparently far superior to every other Guardian in existence.
Well, as far as I can
And-
tell, you only really know of... You have a handful of Guardians you actually see, right? It's Zavala, Ikora Ray, and Anna Bray?
Yeah, I mean, well, and some of the other NPCs that you interact with, but
I'm
thing-
actually curious, which other NPCs?
I think all of the faction leaders, the Dead Orbit and New Monarchy and Future War Cult, are all Guardians as well
Okay.
as all their followers are Guardians as well.
I mean, that doesn't feel explicitly called out, but sure.
No, but I mean, I think that's the case. But But the thing is like, okay, so Tale of Two Games with silent protagonists. You have Final Fantasy XIV. That gives you a clear reason why you are as powerful as you are. And because of that, well, I mean, because of that, it's easier to go along with. Whereas Destiny, we are a guardian who has taken down gods and faction leaders and all manner of things by ourselves and or with two other guardians.
And Zavala is somehow higher ranked and keeps on telling you what to do and calling you dumb.
Right, it makes no freaking sense at all. But again, it's not even that like, oh, we can do this shit better than Zavala any day. We're also never given a reason why we're apparently so freaking powerful. I mean, we were the one that the Traveler chose to help out when everyone else got their light taken away. Spoilers from the first quest or two of Destiny 2, but...
Mm-hmm.
But, like, why? Why are we special enough to, like, be the only Guardian with light?
Because it makes for better gameplay, and Bungie has sacrificed literally everything else at the altar of better gameplay.
Because we're the protagonist.
Yep, you're the protagonist.
That's why.
Like, if you had told me that our ghost, the first ghost, and had been looking for us this entire time, and that by some quirk of how things went is like, as ghosts were created, they became less and less powerful. That would have been enough to say, oh, okay, well then we are a really powerful guardian.
Also, our ghost is apparently pretty incompetent, but, I mean...
Our ghost is incompetent, but it's okay. He's our ghost, damn it. We love him anyway.
I honestly don't think they care.
I mean, there's a ghost that's... So this is, like, not called out in the main storyline, but, like, there's a ghost named Porkchop that has been hunting for a guardian and doesn't really know what the hell he's doing. And, like, you see him going about scanning... Like, there's a story that you can find in the game where he just, like, randomly scans rocks and trees and all sorts of things because he doesn't know what's going to be a guardian.
To compare it to another game that I've been playing a bunch recently, Warframe does care. And Warframe tells an even more scattered story in an even more obtuse way. But when they do, they go all in. Like, yes, their story is nonsense. It is at least as nonsense as Destiny's, if not more so. And they tell it in fewer drips and drabs than Destiny does at all. But when you walk into, they set up a set piece. And that set piece is 100% put together to drive, like, the specific bit of story they want to tell. And sometimes they don't get it right. And sometimes the gameplay there isn't great. But they are willing to sacrifice gameplay for narrative, even in their, like, nonsense story game, just because it needs to happen sometimes. And the end result is I understand what Warframe is trying to sell me, story-wise.
Whereas, of us, I think I'm the only one who understands the story of Destiny, because I scrambled through all of the weird hidden bits of story to piece it together.
Yeah.
And there's been all kinds of payoff because I did that. So, like, there have been things that I've seen in the background of this area or this area, and I've kind of known exactly what that's going to be. And so far it's turned out to be correct because, like, it came from the Books of Sorrows or whatnot. Like, so when you start encountering Hive in Destiny 2, I know exactly who they belong to. Like, they are not Oryx's Hive, they are Savathun's Hive. And I know who Savathun is. But players don't. General players don't have a clue why that's important, why they're Icy Hive instead of otherwise Hive.
Yeah, like I am willing to put forth some effort to understand a story. I have no goddamn clue what's going on in Destiny. Like, it's too much.
I mean, the level of madness that is required to piece things together to a just general level of understanding is kind of the problem.
Yeah. And, honestly, even, like, I don't know. It feels like the story's not well told, which is not a good sign to start. And I don't know. It's not like it all feels like story in service of something else. Like, oh, this prison is actually like a gladiatorial arena. It doesn't feel like a neat story to me. It feels like a justification for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, that said, boy, is this game really fun to play.
It is. And as far as gameplay, with Forsaken, it's in the best state it's ever been. Like, the way that the game works, like, I never run out of things that are beneficial for me to do. Like, there's never a week when I get all the things that I could have done accomplished. I've turned 180 on my opinion of Black Armory. And I know I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, but like, now that I have the appropriate light to do it, igniting the forges for Black Armory is like one of the funnest activities I have ever done in a game like this. It is so good. Like, it just feels so good. And it's because, like, the movement in this game just feels great.
Oh, wow. Huh. We may have to agree to
disagree on that one, though.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know you prefer the movement of Warframe a lot better. I hate the movement of Warframe. It feels like a chaotic mess.
I prefer the movement of about 12 other first-person shooters. I think Destiny's gunplay is really good. I think its movement is mediocre at best, because it's just, you walk around. Like, there's no interesting traversal. There's like kind of jump, sort of, but they're not very inspired jumps.
I feel like I can make the jumps go wherever I want.
It's not really about can you make the jumps do interesting things, because you can develop the skill and kind of wrangle the jumps into doing interesting things. It's are they in an inspired movement form? And they're really not. It's a jetpack, and a kind of weird jetpack, and double or triple jump. It's not
every
like
game should have double jump.
Sure, but every game should have double jump and interesting movement. Like, double jump is sort of like the baseline for interesting movement, whereas you don't even get double jump as a baseline in Destiny.
I don't know. For me, it feels just so smooth.
But I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's technically very, very well executed. Like, 100% agreed. The thing they are doing is executed very well. It's just I just don't find it very inspiring. It's not. I don't have fun moving around in it, because it's like, okay, this is good. Like, this movement is good, but I'm not doing anything that I couldn't do in a million other games.
Yeah. Whereas, like, right now, I am like jumping from box to box to box, running around the rig on Titan, just having fun doing that without necessarily having a point right now. Yeah, it's what I wanted to do.
And like, by comparison, I'm flying around the plains in Warframe, and it's like it's crazy fun because I can double jump, I can do like these dashes and slides, and I'm flying around. I have movement abilities that I can, use, and it changes how I even function.
Like, I guess that's the thing, is like, I've never really gotten what those of you that really enjoy Warframe see in Warframe.
Yeah, I mean, to use a non-Warframe example, I think the movement in Dishonored is better than the movement in Destiny.
Yeah, but that's movement by superpowers, not just fluid movement.
So is Destiny.
I mean, you have triple jump. That's kind of a superpower.
You have magic. You have magic, like levitation weirdness going on. Like, it's still but that's what I mean. It's magic. They're both magic by powers, but one of them is way more interesting than the other one. Because I get, like, Warframe is not everybody's cup of tea, because yes, it's crazy fast, it's crazy weird, but my standard for first-person shooter movement is like Dishonored or Thief.
I guess, like, so here's an example, back to the whole igniting the forge, and what I mean by it feels good to play, and it's mostly movement based, is so the situation is like, you go through several waves and you have to power up the forge, and every so often in the wave after wave of mobs that you're being like confronted with, there's one that's got like a glowing shield on it. So you have to take that one down, and you pick up the orb that it drops, and then you have to like run over and dunk it in a central pillar. all the while trying to avoid dying horribly to all the things that are firing at you. So like when it works perfectly, you're just kind of gliding above the surface of the combat, taking out the few things that you need to take out, and just moving the match forward until you finally, after 2 waves of that, get to the boss, and then you have to burn the boss. But like I've reached a point where like I don't have to kill a lot. Like I can just kind of run around very carefully and take out only the glowing mobs and get the 20 orbs in so that I can move to the next phase, and then get 20 more orbs so that I can proceed to the boss fight. And there's just something that feels good about that sequence of events.
So I guess what I always remember is the race in the original raid. The one where you're running through various holes and you're trying to get the people on the outside to shoot them in proper sequence so that you can go through them and dunk the ball at the end.
Yeah.
And especially when it was early on, there were plenty of times when I would go to slide and I would come up short and I would like go into this really slow crouch, and like that just felt bad. Didn't feel like a great experience. Like I wanted that movement to be cleaner. That wasn't as fun as some of the like speed runs you would do in a game like Warframe, where you are sliding and diving and flying through things. Like that's what I kind of would want from this.
I feel like the difference is in Destiny, movement is great once you are good at it. When you first get it, you're like, oh, this doesn't seem good. There's nothing inspiring about it when you start to make you want to say, oh man, I want to get good at this. This is weird, but it's cool and I want to get good at it. It's, oh, I've gotten good at this and now I can do cool things. Whereas when I think about inspiring movement in games, it's, oh, I can do that? Oh, this is cool. I want to get good at this. Like, this is cool from moment one. I want to get great at it. Where just its very existence is an inspiration for, like, what do you want to do? I mean, it's really hard to accomplish that.
We've gotten a little sidetracked, but before we run completely out of time, there was another really important thing that happened with Destiny this week.
Bungie has detached itself from the publishing deal with Activision and is now getting control of publishing
They're
the
an
Destiny
indie.
franchise.
Yep.
They
Bungie's
are
an indie.
an
And they apparently learned from the last time.
yes.
Yeah, they got to keep their IP this time.
And Activision Blizzard's stock dropped a little over 10% and then recovered basically to like 9.3% drop.
Yep. And apparently enough Activision shareholders are angry about this that they're like have either filed or looking at filing a class action lawsuit.
Whoa.
Yeah, like claiming securities fraud on the part of Activision.
Wow.
I mean, I think this has been a thing in the works for a while, in part because, like at the last earnings call, like Activision really harped upon how disappointed they were in the sales of Forsaken.
Which were really good by the standards of basically any other game.
By any other game, yeah. I guess that's part of the problem too, is like, so if you go look at like any Capcom
it wasn't Black Ops
game,
4, I guess.
Any release, like even Call of Duty, they have said was weaker than expected. Like that's been the case with almost every release.
That was the best-selling game last year.
So you're saying maybe the problem isn't the games, maybe the problem is their expectations.
If a game comes out and doesn't do like markedly better than the previous iteration by like,
but it did
20-30% better, like I think everything's going to be a disappointment too.
I mean, it seems to be the problem that like EA is running into as well, where they're like, oh, our flagship game wasn't the, like, even if it was the best-selling game of the year, it wasn't a ludicrous success. Like, it wasn't an unrealistic, impossible success, therefore we consider it a failure.
I mean, like, have we reached a point where basically anything that makes less in sales than Fortnite
I've heard this before.
is going to be a lack of a success?
Oh, you beat me to it.
That's exactly what we have reached.
We had World of Warcraft, and now we have Fortnite.
Yep.
Well, we had World of Warcraft, then we had Minecraft, and now we have Fortnite as far as runaway successes. And I just want to know, what the hell are they telling investors? Like, what kind of nonsense story are they saying that's completely divorced from reality? And the big complaint about Destiny 2 was that the entire installed base didn't re-engage for Forsaken. That was never gonna happen.
Yeah, I have no idea what they were thinking with that.
And
I'm not sure any
like,
publishers are coming up with anything that's like even remotely realistic.
I think the role of the publisher means a lot less than it used to.
Digital distribution is way bigger than it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, so this is totally informal and it doesn't make any kind of scientific sense, but I started a Twitter poll the other day, and so far I'm up to 60 people that have responded, and basically the question was, how do you buy your games? Mostly physical, mostly digital, or mix of both? And like, we're at 53% mostly digital and 37% mix of both, and the rest being physical. Additionally, other news from this week is that there's two companies fighting over games. Basically, the holding company behind Redbox and the holding company behind Hot Top. So, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of weird changes that happen. Additionally, Ubisoft kicked Steam to the curb.
Ubisoft has wanted
And
to
will
do that
now-
for a long time.
They're going to use Epic for Division 2.
Right, but they tried this already?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it works out.
See how it works out the second time, I guess?
I think
Yeah,
everyone's
and
really
there's just-
hoping Epic is going to be a bigger, like, Epic is going to be able to compete.
Yes, because it's the Fortnite launcher, and therefore is already on every computer that has Fortnite.
I mean, that is a compelling story to tell.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind telling that story.
But again, like, back to what I said about, you know, the force of the publisher, I don't think is going to be as big as it used to be, because retail is mattering less, especially to PC games.
It still matters a lot, but not in the way of dedicated video game stores.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess the thing is like, the publisher was the one that had the deals with Walmart and Target and whatever to get the, and I guess, like, say something gets popular, Walmart is going to find a way to stock that on the, like, I don't think not having a big name publisher is really going to stop it from arriving on the store shelves. And things like Fortnite became popular without a retail.
Yeah. The big breakout hits of the last, all the big breakout hits are not publisher backed. Like, everything that everybody wants to emulate wasn't developed in a publishing think tank.
Well, and now all of these publishers, because of the rise of indies, have created on-ramps to get onto all of the console platforms. So you can get a game on the Switch store, you can get a game on the PSN shop, you can get a game on Microsoft without the backing of a publisher.
Those have been a long time coming, though. I do remember Xbox indie games from the early days of the 360, where they were sectioned off into their own little section where nobody went in.
Oh, yeah.
That was where I first got, not Transistor, Bastion.
Bastion was on the main store. It was not sectioned off by itself.
Castle Crashers, I'm pretty sure, was in the Xbox Live Arcade section.
I'm referring to Xbox Live Indie Games, which was
Yeah.
a section that was so small that maybe you didn't even know about it.
I remember those. I remember what the majority of the quote-unquote games were on them.
Yes, it looks a lot like Steam Greenlight looked before it shut down.
Oh, I was thinking more, hey, this game turns the rumble on your controller on.
Yeah. Basically, I think things are going to get real weird.
I think I'm ready for things to get a little weird.
Yep.
I'm hoping this is going to be a good thing for Destiny. Like, I still love Destiny. It is a super fun game to play. I've been playing a lot with Warren.
I'm really happy about Destiny, not because I love it as a game, but because there's a bunch of stuff that has come to the forefront that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Destiny is the game that I needed to, like, lately I have needed to have my brain turn off at some point, and, like, I mostly don't like that, but right now I kind of need it, and Destiny is super good at that. And also, it's, like, unintentionally a hilarious story, because it really doesn't make sense. Turns out I can find that quite amusing. I do want to say escalations are the worst.
Escalation point.
My experience with this game was I log in, I need to level up. I am on, I think it's Mars. I'm doing Mars because I'm doing Warmind, and suddenly I'm in the middle of a bunch of things with skulls next to their names, and I am dying, and they are all immune to my bullets.
Man, escalation points are like a whole other thing. Like, it is obtuse content. So what you are supposed to do is start an escalation point, and then if you successfully beat the escalation point, it opens another one somewhere on the map, and you rush over to it and start it up. And the goal is to get through 6 of these, and then the 7th is a boss phase that can have a chance of dropping really cool stuff.
I kind of just want you to think what the experience of that is like for somebody who is trying to get back into the game.
Oh, I understand. Like on my alts, it's a pain in the ass when escalation protocols going.
They are so bad at making players coming back want to play this game. I would also point that out that I do feel like Destiny is possibly the biggest example of levels are bad and they shouldn't exist I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean the problem is Destiny uses levels as a purchase verification mechanism.
Yeah, and also like so you have you have to pay.
Especially not a positive.
Yeah, so I have
like
to
there's only certain stuff.
Friends.
Right, like so there is stuff that you have to be like level 20 to do. There is stuff that you have to be like level 30 to do. There is stuff that you have to be level 50 to do. And I don't know why they jumped up to level 50. That makes no frigging sense.
I'm actually...
Because bigger numbers are better.
Well, like, 10 levels would have been plenty.
But 20 levels is twice as many, so it's twice as good.
I do not think you can get from 30 to 50 just doing story.
I
do not think that's possible.
Guarantee it. Because I finished the story at level 48, and I did like some gambits and some other stuff in the middle of that. Also, gambits are super weird, and I love Gambit
so much.
Okay, I have a question though. Gambit says like does not balance for light levels. So am I not just hamstringing my team by going in underleveled?
Not in my experience.
The starting point for every Destiny thing seems to be you need to be at max light. You need to be at max level and at whatever the max light level for the previous thing was to even start. And if you're not there, so it's time to grind.
So I've been using Gambit just as a way of leveling on some of my alts, and I seem to be perfectly effective at that point. So I don't know. I don't know what they mean by that because like it feels like it's leveling down to me.
Huh. Okay. Like, I don't know what it is either, but it's definitely one of the things on the About Gambit section that made me not want to do it for a while. I actually don't mind Gambit, but it made me very concerned.
Okay, so I think maybe it doesn't level down players. So, like, when you've got an invading player, like, I think that may just be grossly unfair to you when there's an invading player. But the deck is stacked against, like... The invader has like a crazy shield and stuff, so the real answer is that the entire team needs to kind of stop what they're doing and kill the invader before progressing. I don't know, like, Gambit's probably my new favorite thing. Yes, there's technically PvP in it, but, like, really, it's a race to fill the bank so that you can summon your primal. And there's, like, a metagame to it, but I'm not necessarily good enough to really know the metagame. Like, realistically, if... I don't know what the numbers are, but there's a way that you can tell when that the other team is going to be able to invade again. And if you are doing it correctly, you will hold on to your moats until they're just about to invade, and then drop a bunch of blockers so that they can't dump their moat. And then you go over and invade and kill them so that they lose those moats. And I realize most of what I just said is going to make no sense to anybody.
It makes sense to me.
So, like, yeah, there's a lot of strategy to Gambit, but, like, mostly I just try and get moats into the bank and not run around for fear that either I'm going to die to NPCs or I'm going to die to another player and lose those moats for my team. the other like nugget of wisdom is the 5 moat and the 10 moat seems way more effective than the 15 moat because the ogres are ridiculously easy to kill from the other side of the map, whereas the knights will just keep dropping flame on top of the other players, making it really hard for you to get close to it. And then the phalanxes, which are the 5 moat ones, will like just punt you away constantly. So basically, we need to be on at the same time, Koja, and I will go run whatever the hell you want to run.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our time zones make that hard.
It does. Also, you being AFK in game and making us think that you're online is also kind of hard.
Yes, I understand.
It's like Warren and I were both trying to reach you today, and it was funny. Anyway, we have gone well over time. Any final thoughts?
Nope.
Oh, I don't think so. Except for Prime is fun.
Anyway, we will see you next week. Good night.
Later.
Good night.
See ya.
Night.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is shit. I just totally failed that. Okay, let's do this again.